Buffalo fans are the longest suffering in the league, in my opinion. I know. I hear Toronto fans. I hear Vancouver fans saying, well, us too. Yeah, I guess. But Buffalo's been going through a rebuild for a while, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. And at some point, I will do a video on the never-ending rebuild of the Buffalo Sabres. I'm going to apologize to Buffalo fans now. If it makes you feel any better, I do think there's hope. But you've got to make up your mind, if you're management, if you're the Pagulas, are you going to go with Jason Botterill or are you not? Are you going to keep going round in circles or are you going to try to make a change? If the Buffalo Sabres management above Jason Botterill believes the team's going in the wrong direction, they have to fire him immediately. Like, as soon as the season's done, before you get to the draft and before you start negotiating contracts, he has to go. If you believe that he is the guy to lead the team, then you have to come out and say he is going to be leading our team and give him a vote of confidence publicly. That's how I see it anyways. Because this is a team that's on the verge of potentially reinventing itself or falling completely off the cliff again. They were 30-31-8 at the pause, 68 points, which is not a good record, but it's still better than last year. Last year we were 33-39-10 with 76 points. And what makes these two seasons really painful is if the cup had been awarded in November, Buffalo would have been in the running both times. And not only that, but the way Buffalo started this year, it looked really darn good. Buffalo and Edmonton both got off to amazing starts. Edmonton was able to stay above that playoff line. Buffalo was not. Now, the season before that, they were 25-45 and 12, 62 points. Now, one person who has to be very, very interested in what they're going to do in the offseason has to be Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel has to look at where this team's been and where it's at and say, you know what, this has to get better. Now, Eichel makes a good chunk of change, but he's not the worst contract on the team, not even close, because he's a beast. And he's worth every cent they're paying him. I believe that. Is there risk to the contract? Long-term contracts all have risk. But their best contract, I went with Ristolainen. Ristolainen at $5.4 million for 2 more years, that's reasonable. For what he does for the amount of minutes he plays, that's reasonable. But coming up with contracts that are good on Buffalo is tough because almost all of them are up. Almost every player you can think of is up or going to be up soon. And again, this is why they have to make a decision on Jason Botterill and make it public. Let us know. So once we've decided what's going to happen with the season, I think we'll see what happens with the GM pretty darn quick. Worst contract? It depends how you view a worst contract. For me, it's Skinner at $9 million until 2027. 7 more years at $9 million. Based on his performance this year, even expecting some sort of a bounce back into the 25-30 goal range, which is where I would expect him to be next year. I think 30 goals is reasonable. I don't know. I think that 40 years is a career year. $9 million is a lot of money. And then Okposo at $6 million for 3 more years. You'd be completely right if you want to point that one out. So they've got 2 contracts that add up to $15 million. Keep in mind, Barkov and Huberdeau cost a combined $11.8 million under the cap. So for an extra almost $4 million, you can have Skinner Okposo instead. I don't know that there's a team that's willing to do that. But, worst contract for me, it's between Skinner and Okposo. So now that we've got through the best and possibly the worst, what's going on with Casey Mittelstadt? Is Casey Mittelstadt an NHL player? Because that question and how they answer it is important. Casey Mittelstadt, when he was drafted, was seen as a future top 6 forward in the NHL, and things looked pretty good, and then all of a sudden they didn't. And he started the season well enough this year, and then it just fell apart for him. So what are they going to do with Mittelstadt? Are they going to give him a spot in that lineup next year? Are they going to do their best to build him up? Or do you look at moving the asset? Do you call up the New York Rangers and say, so this Elias Anderson, Mittelstadt for Anderson? We always hear about Anderson for Puljujarvi, but Mittelstadt's out there too. You've got to think there's going to be a team somewhere that might take a shot at trying to reclaim him. So we'll see what happens with him. To me, he's out there, and what's going to happen. UFA list, Simmons, who bafflingly was picked up by them as a rental at the deadline, although Botterill still believed he was building towards a potential playoff run. So that was the idea, I guess, behind Simmons, who's a rental. Frolik, same thing. Getting him from Calgary was the idea of, okay, we're trying to add some scoring and add some depth up front. VC, UFA this summer. Gergensons, they're going to want to keep Gergensons. I would think he wants to stay there, or does he? The one thing with Zemgus Girgensons is the offensive talent is there. Might it be in his best interest to maybe look somewhere else? Look at a team that might give him a better opportunity. Maybe Girgensons looks at a team like Edmonton and says, I might be able to get some more points in Edmonton. They appear to be headed in the right direction. That would be interesting. Larson and Sobotka are on the list as well. Sobotka's contract comes to an end. I would be very surprised if he gets signed this summer. But Nichushkin was a find for Colorado, so who knows? Maybe Joe Sakic looks at Sobotka, works his magic, gets him on a entry-level, like $700,000 minimum contract, and he turns into a pretty good fourth liner for the Avs. That's my prediction. Now, RFAs is where things get really interesting if you're a Buffalo fan, and kind of terrifying at the same time. And this is why, if they're going to make a decision about the GM, they need to do it immediately. They can't make a decision on the GM after free agency and after the draft and after. No, they've got to make that decision pretty quick. Their RFAs include Sam Reinhart, arbitration rights, and there have certainly been rumors for the last year or so on whether or not Reinhart might find his way out of Buffalo, and what that might cost and what that might do for them if they manage to, like, if they went out tomorrow and decided they were going to try to move Reinhart and Ristolainen, what kind of package would have to come back in order for those two to move either together or separately? Dominic Cahoon, arbitration rights for him as well. And Olofsson. How much is Olofsson worth? We didn't finish the season. We didn't get to see over a full season how Olofsson's going to play. Olofsson had a great start to the season. So was the great start by Olofsson, was that the real Victor Olofsson? Was the Victor Olofsson that struggled in between? Is it somewhere in the middle? It's probably somewhere in the middle. And how much is that worth to the Buffalo Sabres? So look for bridge contracts and we'll see where they're at. Lazar, arbitration rights. Montour, who played both defense and forward. Arbitration rates for him. Pilot, arbitration rates for him. And Ullmark also has arbitration rates. So Linus Ullmark, is he a starting goaltender in the NHL? Honestly, he kind of won me over this year. I would say tentatively yes. But how much is that worth? And do you keep Hutton around as the other goaltender? I don't know. I mean, I think if they want to make the playoffs, Ullmark's good enough to be one of those two. I don't know with Hutton. And I think that's an interesting question that the general manager is going to have to answer this summer. Hutton has 2 more years left at $2.7 million each. Might you be able to package Hutton up to, say, Montreal? Maybe Montreal looks and goes, yeah, we can play Hutton for 30 games. It'd be an upgrade over Kincaid or Lindgren or whatever else we have. Again, these are decisions that will be made by the general manager this summer. Or do you just keep Ullmark and Hutton and plan on keeping things kind of the same? And Tage Thompson is an RFA this summer as well. He does not have arbitration rights, so he has very little say in what's going to happen. And again, with restricted free agents, you have a choice. You can qualify them, or you can not qualify them, which means you're saying, I'm not going to offer them a contract, and then they can leave as unrestricted free agents. Now, here's the thing. Buffalo has $47 million. That's it, under the cap for next year. According to Cap Friendly, they've spent $47 million for next year. This is Ottawa levels of free money. This is Detroit levels of free money. The difference is Ottawa and Detroit fans are perfectly fine with the team not being in the playoffs next year. Buffalo fans are understandably far more anxious to see their team get into the playoffs. Far more anxious to see things turn around now. So that $47 million, whatever they do with that cap money they have, whether it's we're going to go out and try to get Taylor Hall and we're going to try to keep things the way they are, whether it's we've got Risto here we've been trying to trade, we're going to try to trade him again. Reinhardt's a pretty good player, but we want to get better. We trade Reinhardt, we bring in Hall as a free agent. It's going to be a very interesting summer, because they're going to be expected to spend some money. And with the Pagulas and the amount of cutbacks that they've instituted with their corporation, might the Pagulas go to whoever the GM is, whether it's Botterill or whoever else, and say, we're not going to spend to the cap. You have $60 million for next year. That's it. We're not spending more than that. Might it lengthen that period? And then if you're a Buffalo fan and you watch them gut the actual payroll because they're trying to, not lose more money, do you kind of hate on them a little bit more? Do the Pagulas just completely wipe out Melnyk when it comes to the most disliked owners in the NHL? Many, many questions abound, right? Now, for Rookie Watch, there aren't a lot of rookies that look like they're going to hit for Buffalo, because a lot of them are already in the lineup. A lot of young kids are already in the lineup. They've already got a pretty young roster. Dylan Cousins absolutely should be making their team out of camp this year and could be part of a solution. Dylan Cousins stepping in, you keep Olofsson, maybe Cousins coming in allows you to move Reinhart. Maybe you move some parts around, right? Maybe you find a taker for Okposo's contract. Maybe they do have compliance buyouts. Okposo's compliance bought out, done, and you're down to $41 million spent for next year. Rasmus Asplund is not a rookie. He played 29 games this year, but I've got him on the board because he should be on their roster full time next year. It would be kind of surprising if he's not. R2 Ruotsalainen should be coming over, and odds are he starts out in Rochester, but does he stay in Rochester? Does he get a call up? Jonas Johansson, who's RFA this summer as well. I didn't put him up here because I'm running out of space. So only so many RFAs I can throw up there, but he's an RFA as well. Might Johansson be the solution for backup behind Ullmark, and then you move on from Hutton? Or do you look at Johansson and say, yeah, he played well enough in his call-up, but in terms of a backup, we want somebody a little more experienced and somebody that we think has a little more upside? Or again, do you just hold on to Hutton and Ullmark? And Jacob Bryson. So I've got him on the board because he may very well get brought up. Smaller for a defenseman, 5'9", according to what I was reading. I think 175. But we're in an era now where small defensemen make the NHL and play in the NHL regularly. So you do have questions with a smaller defenseman regarding their ability to stay in the NHL and deal with the physical toll that hockey takes game in and game out. But, we'll see if Bryson makes the team out of camp and what that does for them. So Cousins is the big one with the rookie watch. He is the big one. And I don't think there's a Buffalo fan out there that disagrees. And then what do they do with their first round draft pick? What if you win the draft lottery? So what if that number one draft pick becomes Lafreniere? What if Buffalo has Lafreniere? Does that change what you do going forward? Does this make Botterill look like a genius if Lafreniere falls into their lap and they win a draft lottery, and then next year they get better because they're just scoring too many goals not to be better? Maybe they're that team that can win every game 6-4, 7-5, and we have, comparisons between them and the Oilers of the 80s. Maybe. But it's going to be a very interesting offseason for Buffalo because of how much money they don't have to spend yet and how many players are out there that are waiting on contracts. It'll be a very busy offseason. There's a reason the NHL is thinking about doing the draft before they've made a decision on the season, because teams are in situations like this. And a squashed offseason, oh boy. And uncertainty about where the cap number is going to be. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason in Buffalo. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, stay home if you can. Stay safe when you can't. Thank you guys so much for all your support. And remember, wash your hands. It's good advice at all times, all year. That may just end up being in my closing from now on, forever. Wash your hands. Just wash. Maybe when I greet people, when was the last time you washed your hands? All right, well, I'm going to stay at least, 6 feet away from you. Anyways, thank you guys so much for all your support as always, and I'll talk to you again soon.